It is time to get inside the minds of two of the biggest trade sickos you'll ever meet, the two of us. We're going to tell you guys some of the biggest secrets to, I would say, on a daily basis, probably one of us makes a Dynasty trade per day, given the amount of leagues that we're in. We make a lot of trades, and I feel like a lot of leagues, we get comments all the time saying, hey, nobody trades in my league, that kind of thing. So we're going to give you guys 6 and a bonus 7th trade secrets to get more trades done in your league and also make better trades as well, ideally.
Yeah, and for the most part, people will say, hey, I can't make trades in my league. All my league mates are inactive. And sure, there are some cases where that is true. Like I've been in leagues specifically with some of my buddies where like they'll almost refuse to trade with me unless they are like basically ripping me off because they think I know something that maybe they don't. But regardless, for the most part in a lot of your guys' leagues, if your guys aren't making content and you just say, hey, like I can't make trades in my league, like are you doing enough to make the trade? Are you just throwing a pick on the block? Are you just throwing a player on the block? Are you actually going out and getting busy?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the trenches all the time. So let's kick things off with tip number 1. Before you make a trade, you probably should understand why you're making the trade, about your own team.
What's the purpose?
What's the purpose? What is your team archetype? We talked about this in depth a couple of videos ago. If you guys check out the, make these moves if you're a rebuilder, make these moves if you're a contender. We talked about this in depth. Is your team archetype a monster, meaning that you're the best team in the league, it's not even close? A true contender, top 3 to 4 team? A house money team, meaning you could kind of rebuild or contend depending on how the season goes. You have a lot of long-term liquidity. A rebuilder, as in you're not really trying to compete this year. Or a tank job, you're selling everything for spare parts. What type of team do you have? That's going to impact the types of trades you make. Yeah, so if you're a competing team, you might be making a trade because you're trying to address a position of need. Is this maybe because, you don't have an RB2 right now, or you don't have a wide receiver 3 right now? That's probably why you would be making a trade most notably. Or maybe you're using this to tier up in a competitive window. Maybe you're trying to take, a wide receiver 3 type and a running back 2 type and go get a hammer wide receiver 1 like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Lad McConkey, somebody like that.
Yeah, and you'll see when the Dynasty startup strategy video comes out, like obviously like your league settings will matter a lot, specifically in relation to trades, knowing full-fledged based off your settings, what the equatable values are going to be and what type of trade that you're actually seeking out in terms of, the shallow nature of the league, the tight end premium, like all those league settings will factor in terms of what moves you should be making.
Absolutely. And then on a rebuilding team, you're probably not worried about positions of need. You're probably looking to collect draft picks. You're probably looking to shed production, shed riskier, older players off of your roster. And your ultimate goal is to compete later, not right now. So the mindset of the types of trades you're making as a competitive team versus as a rebuilding team are going to be different. Whatever your goal is with the trade based on your team archetype, your goal is drastically different if I am taking over an orphan and I sell off Darnell Mooney and Aaron Jones for 2 2s. That's a different trade mindset as a tank job rebuilding team versus if I'm a clear top 2 to 3 team in my league and I sell Justin Herbert in a 2nd round pick and a super flex for Saquon and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Understanding where your league is situated, understanding, again, the format of your league, what the values actually are, potentially changed based off those certain settings and taking advantage of them.
Yeah, get clear. What are your goals? And next up is understanding the perspective of your league mate. And I think this is probably the most important.
Why would they do this deal with you? Like ask yourself that question. Before you make a single offer, how does it benefit your team? What is the purpose of why you're doing it? But also, okay, is it just completely one side? Like, am I just looking at through this with the lens that I am bettering my team? Or am I looking through this through the lens of I'm getting better, but I'm also not just coming out from the fleece mentality?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk about fleece mentality in a second, but ultimately, you cannot make trades with yourself. It takes 2 to tango. Your league mate is probably looking at your trade offer and deciding whether or not they want to accept it based on how it impacts their team, not how it impacts your team. So if you understand your own league's perspective or your own team's perspective first, and then you go into it, okay, in this league, for example, you guys can see my team. This is a league in which I won the championship. You guys can see my team. It's our Debbie Degeneracy team. I had a monster team last year. I had Travis Hunter this year, and Omari and Hampton. It is a Debbie league, so those guys come into my team. I have a really good team. I won the championship last year. I look at my league mate's team here, who all he really has is Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jaden Daniels, and Justin Jefferson as like elite assets and Brock Bowers. He could use wide receiver desperately. His second best receiver in terms of dynasty rank is Josh Downs, and then Mike Evans after that and Stephon Diggs. This is a team that could desperately use wide receivers. So in this league, if I wanted to make a trade with this player, I would go, okay, he only has 4 receivers that are ranked inside my top 60 and 1 inside my top 36. If I wanted to buy Saquon Barkley from him because I'm a contending team, I should probably offer him some wide receiver help, considering that I have Nico Collins and Ladd McConkey and Travis Hunter and DJ Moore and T. Higgins. My 5th best receiver, DJ Moore, would be his 2nd best receiver, according to our expert rankings. So thinking about his perspective, would he be likely to accept an offer of me sending him a running back for Saquon Barkley?
No. Like, what purpose does he have for getting a running back and giving up Barkley? Like you said, like, if he were to be selling an asset like Saquon Barkley and give you that type of point production, first and foremost, if he sees your team, he can't just give you like 80 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, I'm going to give Chuba Hubbard and a 2 for Saquon Barkley.
Like straight, like he has to make sure, okay, well, like if I'm selling Saquon Barkley from you specifically, why are you buying Saquon Barkley? To defend your crown. Well, if you're trying to defend your crown, you're not getting Saquon Barkley for a 90 cents on the dollar deal, 95 cents on the dollar deal. So I'm just saying, if I was on the other perspective of the owner in this league, I understand your interest in Saquon Barkley. I understand that maybe Saquon Barkley doesn't fit my bill because I want to add a wide receiver, and I would be looking for a needle mover back rather than just spare parts.
Yeah, and if he's the understanding the league mate's perspective too is not just what type of archetype are you, because mine's a true contender. Obviously, I won the championship last year. What type of archetype is he? Right now, he actually tried to contend last year, but maybe he's thinking about tearing it down. So the types of trade offers I could send him is maybe he'd be interested in Ladd McConkey and a future Devy pick for Saquon Barkley and Mike Evans, so that I get my competitive assets. I also have Baker Mayfield. That would help me out in terms of stacking. Maybe that would be the type of deal that would appeal to him. He's like, okay, I need a tear down move. And you get in his DMs, hey, are you looking to compete this year? Are you looking to rebuild this year? This is what we do. We don't I don't just throw Ladd McConkey on the trade block and expect the best trade offer to hop into my DMs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't happen right away, but maybe by like week 3, week 4, he's like, Saquon, or like, not Saquon specifically, but like, my team is like maybe not producing as many points as it was last year, but Saquon's off to a strong start. And at that point, if he wants to equate more value into like a Ladd McConkey, like you said, in a piece, like I think it makes sense. Like that would be a deal. That would be an offer that you would float out to him, maybe because he started 2-2 and is the 6th highest scorer in the league.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm planting the seeds, testing the waters. Are you looking to compete right now? Are you looking to rebuild right now? Because if you're not looking to compete, I'm interested in Saquon Barkley, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, some of his competitive assets, because I am looking to compete. And I'm in a position where my team has an opportunity to go get a hammer like Saquon Barkley because it's ready to defend its crown, like you said.
You're in a position where you can give even an extra little bit of value to get that production equity.
Yeah, and it can work from the other perspective, like we said, too. Like if my league mate's perspective is that he's the contender and I'm the rebuilder, then obviously he's not going to have much use for Kyle Williams versus my Mike Evans. He's going to want the Mike Evans asset, not the Kyle Williams asset.
Yeah, I would agree.
So tip number 3 is you have to give a little to get a little. And this is easily the biggest reason why a lot of you guys will comment, nobody trades in my league. The reason is because everybody's trying to fleece each other. And it might not be you, it might be other managers in your league, but generally speaking, as we just made reference to, understand your perspective, understand your league mate's perspective. Nobody's thinking about anybody's perspectives when you're trying to fleece. You're trying to send Tyreek Hill in a 2 for Jalen Hurts. You're not going to get that deal done. You're trying to fleece that person. You're hoping that their finger slips and they hit the accept button. All this results in is nobody wanting to trade with you.
Want me to counterpoint this too? If somebody comes at you, because like you said, I agreed. If you're sending them out to other people, it takes them to be the bigger person and want to actually negotiate with you in the future. On the flip side, though, you will have league mates that will send you dog shit offers, that will send you offers that don't appeal to what you want whatsoever. Just because you get an insulting offer doesn't mean you're like, I'm going to burn my bridge. I'm never going to negotiate with him again. He has terrible valuations. Like, no, maybe he just showed you his intention that he has interest in the player, but didn't know how to actualize that value in a trade offer. And in fact, I talked to you about this before. I actually made this example in the Dynasty Trade Secrets from 2023, but there was an example from the Mickey Mouse League in that like I showed the DMs, I showed the communication. We can even pop it up on the screen while I'm talking right now. But the initial offer that was sent to me was Gabe Davis in a 2nd for Jamison Williams. The deal that we ended up making, again, we ended up making this deal within a day, was Josh Allen and Drake London for Justin Fields, CeeDee Lamb, and I believe the 2023 109. Where was Jameson Williams? Where was that second round pick? Where was Gabe Davis? None of the initial assets that were in my offer, in his offer to me, ended up making the deal that we ended up agreeing to. Because ultimately, I realized he wanted the wide receiver upgrade. So I applied that. I'm like, okay, so he wants to upgrade at wide receiver. Maybe he's interested in CeeDee Lamb. And don't worry, I ended up reacquiring CeeDee Lamb at a later date.
Don't worry, guys. Dan
I ended up reacquiring CeeDee Lamb, but
he would never get rid of CeeDee Lamb intentionally. Let's just keep that in mind.
The only opportunity I'd give away CeeDee Lamb is when I can get Josh Allen. Like that's an acceptable way. But regardless, as you guys can see, like because I saw the intention that he was looking for a wide receiver upgrade, I took that information and ended up translating it into a deal that actually benefited me in the long run. Because I mean, you look back on it, Drake London gained value, Justin Fields lost a ton of value, and I ended up reacquiring Lamb.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not going to get every trade that you want using this strategy of getting a little, giving a little to get a little, because you can't control your league mate's perspective. Your league mate might be delusional. You might look at their roster and be like, this team needs to rebuild so bad. When you look at our My Teams feature and you're like, they have Barkley and Evans and Diggs or something, and you're like, these are their only good assets outside of a couple foundational pieces. Your league mate might look you in the face and be like, no, I have the best team in the league. Like, you can't do anything about that. Your league mate if they're delulu enough to think that, you're like, okay, yeah, like you go nuts, man. Come back to me. Again, keep up the trade relationship. We'll talk about that with the next point.
Yeah.
But tell them essentially like, hey, if you change your mind, hit me up. I guess we weren't able to get something done.
Yeah.
Week 4 comes along, like you said, they're 0-4. Then you get back after them for those assets.
Anytime my league mate says like, oh, I can't do this deal, I'm not willing to do this deal, my go-to, and I'm sure you've seen this multiple times from me, when I know that a deal is not going to happen that day, what is my go-to two-word response every time?
No worries.
No worries. Every freaking time. Maybe I want to say, oh, you're delusional or you're an idiot. No, if I disagree with it, no worries. And then eventually, if I have another potential opportunity with them, I may approach them. But if I know a deal is not happening at that time, no worries. And actually, that translates into the next point with maintaining a good trade relationship. If they sent me a bad offer and they're not willing to budge on that valuation, sending a simple no worries to them, they'll be like, oh, you know what? That's like, I can approach them on a future deal. Maybe this deal wasn't able to get done. Maybe I approached the wrong way here. Like you're leaving the opportunity, the possibility for a future deal with them because you didn't attack them, because you weren't rude, because you weren't unapproachable.
Yeah, and I would say generally, your league mates will probably have the attitude of, I'm going to send them a fleece offer or an offer that greatly benefits my team with the hopes that we can get something done. This is my initial offer. This is the offer that I would absolutely look, because if it gets accepted, your league mate's going to be like, oh, yes, thank God they accepted this deal.
Yep.
But generally, there's probably some wiggle room there. You and I, and especially like this is definitely one of the things that I take into this, I think a good rule of thumb is not to send a disrespectful first offer.
Agreed.
Send an offer that is maybe 10% of what you're willing to give, like very close to your absolute ceiling of the offer that you would give, maybe even 10% closer than you think you should give in your first offer, because then your league mate doesn't look at that and go, what an awful offer that they just sent me. And you're burning bridges at that point.
And it's easier for us, obviously, again, the number one resource for that, the Flock Trade Calculator, you can literally sort. Like if I'm dealing in for example, an FSC league, I know that they can just say, oh, Danny McKinnon, well, actually, you're saying this, but I can literally backtrack and see on this. And obviously, again, like I'm not making an offer, a disrespectful offer in general, because that's just not how I approach Dynasty as a whole. But the fact of the matter is I actually use that to my advantage. I could be like, hey, if you're unsure about this offer, plug it into the Flock calculator and you'll see it is a fair offer. In fact, it might even lean your valuation one way because I have motivation to make this type of deal.
Yeah, exactly. So the thought process behind making trades ultimately is that two people get good trades done. Is it going to
mutually beneficial?
Is it going to work out that way? Of course not. Somebody's going to win the trade in the long term. Somebody's going to lose the trade in the long term. Maybe I would say once a year, twice a year, I'll get a gift in my inbox. Like there will be one I'm like, I can't believe that person just sent me that. But that doesn't happen if you have a shit relationship with all of your league mates. That you might have a no worries situation happen where you send them an offer and it doesn't result in anything and it's no worries, but they send you the gift offer because they have a good trade relationship with you versus everybody else in the league tells them to go fuck themselves every time they send an offer.
That happens so many times for me. It's like when I see like somebody's willing to deal, but maybe they're having trouble getting a deal done. Like I'll always be confused. Like, well, why are you having trouble to get a deal done? Like, how are your relationships in this league? Did you tell someone to fuck off? Did you tell someone you're an idiot? Like what did you do to deteriorate that trade relationship? Because again, maybe it's just the way I approach communication in general, but I have had no problem when I have motivation to make a deal, actually making a deal. No Falcon, for example. I could have been panicking. Oh my God, my team's a fraud. I don't know what to do. Now I have to rely upon other trade partners to be able to tear it down. Like, what's going on? What did I do within a week?
Yeah, you tore your whole team down and you converted all your assets into draft picks within a week. And again, that happens in part because you're open to make deals and you have good trade relationships with your league mates. And speaking of no flocking, this exact league that you're making reference to, I think it's really important to showcase kind of what the communication looks like. And we've done this in other videos. I did a video called Trade Secrets last year. You guys can check out where I detailed some trade negotiations, how I talk to the other person. You did a video that you just made reference to 2 years ago on the same topic. So if you want to see more examples of how we actually say, hey, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm actually not really there on that value. I would prefer to do this instead. That's how we talk in our communications. I just made a trade last week where I was dealing with 2 managers at the same time for the same assets on my part. I was looking to sell my picks because I'm a contending team or trying to be a contending team. And I was looking for competitive assets. So Jared and Claire, 2 of our, dedicated followers who I'm sure don't mind being showcased here.
Debbie League.
Jared is going to be the commissioner of the Debbie League, actually. He was trying to offer me Mark Andrews, Daniel Jones, Kyron Williams. I need a QB3, a tight end, and a running back upgrade. Makes sense. I would be giving him Jack Besh. He's trying to tear it down. 2026 first, which projects to be mid to late because my team is number 1 on the Flock Analyzer. And then third, a 3rd round pick in 2026. This was a deal I was willing to make for what it's worth. I was willing to accept this deal. I'm a little bit higher on the assets that I ended up trading for from Claire instead of Jared, which is why I eventually said to Claire, hey, I'm about to accept a deal. Can we get something done here? And of course, jokingly, she's like, oh, is this part of your tactic? Are you bluffing right now? And I was like, no, I have a deal like that I'm about to accept. Yeah. And the deal that we ultimately ended up doing was Tyreek, Evan Ingram, Brian Robinson, and Brandon Ayuk for my 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Jalen Wright, and Jack Besh. And to me, I just like the production value of Tyreek, Ayuk, and Brian Robinson better than the assets I was getting. And Evan Ingram versus Andrews to me wasn't it was a negligible difference from a redraft perspective. And I was motivated to get those assets because you know this, we've done redraft rankings already. I love Tyreek Hill this year. So I was motivated to do that deal more than the other deal because I like Kyron this year. I like Andrews this year, but Tyreek, Ayuk, and Brian Robinson are just higher valued assets for me. So that's why I kind of use that to get the best deal for myself. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go and pit your league mates against each other constantly and, get the best deal for yourself possible. But what I'm saying is the reason I was able to do this and nobody was like offended in the end is that I've made multiple trades. I've made multiple trades with both of these people already. So it was very easy for me to do this and tell them transparently and be like, I have a deal with Jared that I'm about to accept.
And that's the thing. It depends how you frame it. Don't use it like, oh, like this is a bidding war now. Like you don't want to be the dickhead of the situation. You want to be transparent. You want to say, hey, you offered me this deal. I know you showed interest. Unfortunately, this is the most competitive offer I have. Can you match it? Can you beat it? Like, what can you do for me? If you frame it from that perspective, because again, that's the other thing for communication. It all depends on how you're communicating it. Because you could say 2 different things with different intonation, with different wording, with phrasing, and it could be perceived in 2 completely different aspects. Like you could say it maybe like more blunt or more straight up, like, hey, like you got to beat this, haha, or whatever. Like, or versus like, hey, like we've made deals before. I want to make this deal, but we got to match it a little bit. Like depending on how you word it, can make the world of a difference on actually if you get a deal done or not.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, they were both pending offers. I had the offer sent out to her. He had sent the offer into me. She was dealing with stuff in real life. So I was like, hey, like ping, like we got to talk about this before I accept this deal kind of thing. And you mentioned redirecting trade negotiations respectfully too, because like I said, I think the majority of Dynasty players will not send their best offer for their first offer. Yeah. And naturally, like, why would you? If it gets accepted, you're obviously going to be over the moon for that. But again, if they send you a shitty Jameson Williams, for Gabe Davis in a 2 offer, you didn't tell them to pound. Yeah, you didn't say pound sand. I'm never doing that. You're like, actually, I'm more interested in this deal. And you eventually get a deal done.
Exactly. Just because you get a shitty offer doesn't mean that you can't use that DM, that interest, that intention to make a deal with you from their perspective to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So tip number 5 is team specific. I would say there's really only 2 team archetypes that this makes sense for. It's okay to lose a trade, like i.e. you use our flock trade calculator, which is, by the way, tailored to your league settings. Yes, these are the extremes. One quick note on the flock trade calculator. You guys might be thinking it's just like the keep trade cut trade calculator. No. You can put in Dynasty, Superflex, tight end premium, start 11, 20 bench spots, and it will tailor the trade to your specific league, unlike the keep trade cut or the other trade calculators in the world. So if you're wondering what the flock trade calculator is, go use it for free. Use the expert rankings. You can tailor it to your specific league settings. But let's say you're losing the trade in the trade calculator based on my rankings, based on your rankings, based on the expert rankings. It's applicable for one of 2 different team archetypes.
Yeah.
You get a hammer. You're trading for Bijan Robinson. You're trading for Malik Neighbors. You're trading for CeeDee Lamb. You might lose the trade because you're giving up.
Are you a monster or are you a tank job?
Are you a monster or a tank job? If you are a monster, you can afford to lose a trade because you have the assets to be able to make up for it, and you are simply looking to upgrade your starting lineup, and that's why you're making the trade. Because let's say it's a start 7 or a start 8, and starting lineup's all that matters. You can afford to give up Breece Hall, DK Metcalf, and a second-round pick for Jamar Chase.
Yes, because when we're saying lose a trade, we're talking in relation to future market value. A year from now, when we look back on this deal, where exactly are these assets from a dynasty perspective? That's when we say lose a trade. However, if you're a monster, there's 2 different types of values. Yes, when we refer to lose a trade, we're specifically talking about the adjusted market value a year from now. But the value for you, if you're a monster, is also the production value, which really can't be measured unless you're in a pure contending scenario. Like, yeah, you're okay with buying the Ferrari on the lot because you know you're going to drive that around with your wife and you're going to have a great time. And like the value that you get from that experience is going to outweigh the value loss on that investment. If Saquon Barkley gives you a 23-point per game year and you know inherently he's only going to be worth 80% of his current market value this time next year, well, guess what? If that 23 points per game leads you to a championship, your next 8 or 9 buy-ins are basically already paid for.
Yeah, it's worth it. And conversely, you have a terrible team.
You don't need the production value.
You don't need the production value. Let's say you sell assets, and you could argue the trade that we were just talking about, Claire sold low on some of the assets there. She's trying to tank her team down, trying to strip it down to the bones, get all the competitive assets off of it. You maybe will take 90, 95 cents on the dollar to
one caveat on that too.
What's up?
The one caveat specifically, I'm more willing to accept the 90, 95 cents on the dollar deal, specifically in relation to rookie pick liquidity. I stress this home. Now, obviously, there's going to be scenarios you get young, appreciating, assets that you think are going to accrue value this time next year that you maybe believe in from a micro perspective. Maybe it's, you really believe in Josh Downs and you're willing to give maybe a higher rated veteran receiver for him right now because the guy that you have right now is 28 and Josh Downs is 23. That's one thing. Okay, sure, fine. But specifically in relation to rookie picks, inherently 2026 rookie picks are going to gain about 15 to 20% of value this time next year. And that is compounded on a year-to-year basis. What was one of the main moves I did in No Flock in this year? What was the main piece of liquidity that I acquired?
2027 and 2028 picks, I believe, right?
I have 4 2028 first-round picks. Because I know inherently the cost that I'm getting at them at right now is probably about 60 to 65% what they'll be worth by 2028. And because I have no need of a competing window right now, I don't have to fill out a lineup to score the most amount of points I could possibly get.
In fact, you don't want to. You want to score the least amount of points that you possibly can.
Because I don't have that pressure, because I don't have that expectation of production for my team. If I know inherently I'm buying a stock, I'm buying a stock that I am almost guaranteed to make 1.5x on this time 3 years from now, and I have no stress in terms of my time window, why wouldn't I buy that stock?
Yeah, exactly. You're getting 90, 95 cents on the dollar per the trade calculator, let's say, but
for the immediate value.
You want the productive assets off of your team because they're not going to hold value like this pick that you're getting. You also want to tank your own first round pick so that you can get the 101 in 2026 and probably in 2027 and hopefully in 2028 as well. So it's like a 2-pronged reason why you're doing it. We've talked about this on numerous occasions, and experienced Dynasty players probably understand this, but let's say ideally, in an ideal world, you want to get a first round pick for Chris Godwin. You're like, Chris Godwin's production to me is worth a first-round pick. If I was a contender, I would give up a first-round pick for Chris Godwin. But the best offer you're getting is an early projected 2 and a 3. That's the best offer you're getting. You're not getting first-round pick liquidity on the market. It hurts your team more to hold him and, let's say, catastrophically suffers another ankle injury or something like that than it does to just take the early 2 and 3 that you have on the board.
The example for that is actually the deal I made with Tano. Realistically, given what I expect from Christian McCaffrey this year, I probably sold out. I sold Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. I ended up getting a 2027 1 and a 2026 D. Think, okay, on face value, like if McCaffrey, I have him at 107 in my rankings right now. I've talked to you about this. You guys don't know this yet. You guys will see this over on the site. I did update my rankings. Christian McCaffrey, like it sounds like he's fully healthy. It sounds like he's ready to accept his workload. It sounds like he's going to be good to the season. Okay. But what happens if he gets hurt by week 4? What happens if he, the Achilles tendonitis flares up? Or what if happens if he tears his Achilles or breaks his collarbone? Like whatever the case may be. The reason why I valued him was for his production. But if I don't need his production, liquidating now, getting those picks, yeah, maybe I could have gotten 2 firsts in season, but waiting till week 6 to get 2 firsts risk the fact that they can completely plummet in value. Deebo Samuel maybe has another stint with ammonia, or he's, fucking being a knucklehead because that guy's always fucking unstable. Like, you never know. Like, there's risk volatility there that I got away from because I liquidated when I did.
Yeah. The moral of the story is if your team is better off for making the trade, ergo, it gives you more pick liquidity if you're a rebuilder, or it gives you a monster in your starting lineup if you're a monster type of team, you didn't lose the trade in the long run. If you win a championship because Nico Collins helped you win that championship and you overpaid for Nico Collins as a monster, you're fine. If you get,
Nico.
Yeah,
FSC Listener League.
Yeah, Danny traded me Breece Hall and DK Metcalf for Nico Collins because his team is kind of a monster and my team was looking to upgrade at running back. So.
And like if Breece Hall bounces back and DK has 150 targets, like, yeah, you can argue, okay, maybe I overpaid. But like if Nico Collins was the last piece I needed beside a team that has, Gibbs, Barkley, Jefferson, Chase, Trey McBride, Josh Allen, like if he was the last piece I needed to win my championship and go back to back, guess what? Those 2 wins that I got as a monster are going to pay literally for the complete future of this Dynasty League for me. Like I won't have to worry about a buy-in for the rest of this league's history.
Yeah, like you won it last year, and if you win it again this year, you're good till 2034, 2038. I don't know. I can't even do quick math right now. But yeah, again, losing trades is something that people worry about way, way too much. Again, in a vacuum, like you said, you don't want to sell a great asset for 2 mediocre assets, but use the Flock trade calculator. It is free to use. It factors in when you're getting the best player in the deal. It factors in your league market. It factors in your league settings. It factors in that you can get a replacement level player. Like a trade for a 2-for-1 where you give me Breece Hall and DK Metcalf for Nico Collins is not a 2-for-1. It's Breece Hall and DK Metcalf for Nico Collins and a roster spot.
Yeah. Roster spot / whoever would have made my flex. And to be fair, like my team is so loaded. Like I was afforded the opportunity to make this move because in a start, I think 9 that league is, I have like 13 high leverage pieces that can work into my lineup at any point. And this goes to the point of giving yourself multiple outs to win trades. How can you insulate your trades where if you're potentially wrong or slightly off on the player you gave up versus player you acquired, how can you insulate yourself to potentially make it right? Yeah, sure. Maybe you lost on the theory because you bet on, let's just say the scenario was you got Breece Hall in a second for Bucky Irving because you actually had Breece Hall and Bucky Irving back to back. Let's say Bucky Irving was the RB6 next year and Breece Hall was only maybe the RB11 in points per game. We still have the opportunity where if you hit on that second round pick, who knows? Like, what if you hit on the next T. Higgins? What if you hit on, the next, there's just next Michael Pittman, for example, in the 2020 class. I don't know why I'm only thinking of 2020 class guys right now, but there's examples every year that, yeah, sure, second round picks in theory, you're not expecting them to be needle movers, but you're insulating yourself to the point where if they do become it, you have another path to winning that deal.
Yeah, exactly. Adding rookie firsts, rookie seconds, multiple picks to the back of trades to balance them out, it really ups your floor in that deal and ups your ceiling as well. For example, if I sold you Jalen Hurts for Joe Burrow because I thought Joe Burrow was going to be better this year, The only way I win that deal is if Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts. It's the only way I could possibly win that deal for the next.
So funny you mentioned this next example, by the way, because I literally made this deal no flocking.
Yes. But if I sold Jalen Hurts for Drake May a first and 2 seconds, I win the deal, or you win the deal in this specific example. If Drake May outproduces Jalen Hurts, obviously you would win the deal there. He's younger, so he would gain a lot more value.
If he goes ahead of him in startups next year because he had a sophomore jump and people are like, oh, yo, this is next Josh Allen, like there's that upside to it from a market perspective. And like you said, any of the insulation, like for the exact example that I did in no flocking was, I believe it was, I got Drake May, Bryce Young, a first, 2 seconds, and like 4/3, and I gave up, I believe it was Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, and Marquise Brown. It's like Marquise Brown for me, like, sure, take a 3 or 2-3. I don't really care. Like he was not consequential to where I was going. Yeah, like Darnold has value, but I would much rather have Bryce Young. So really, what the nuts and bolts of that trade was Drake May plus all that insulation for picks, like the first, the 2 seconds, and the extra thirds I got for Lamar Jackson. If Drake May ends up being, in my opinion, which is very well within his range of outcomes, and in fact, almost my expectation for where I think he can take the next step as a player, and he has a top 5, top 6 startup pick next year, that's gravy. That's gravy. I rebuilt my team in one move.
Yeah, exactly. What happens if you get the 107 next year out of that trade and you pick the next Brian Thomas Jr.?
Exactly.
Or you pick the next Jahmyr Gibbs, or you pick... Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have multiple outs to win that deal. So if you are making trades and it's based on player takes specifically, like let's say you're trading, I love Josh Downs, for example. I'm trading Ricky Pearsall for Josh Downs. But instead of being like, I'm going to look smarter than everyone for having Josh Downs over Ricky Pearsall, I do Ricky Pearsall and a 2 for Josh Downs and a 1.
Yeah, or maybe you can't even get a 1 for 2, but like even a 3 for 2 swap, like just like little pieces of insulation. Anytime you can add them in a deal, it's like, ooh, I'm not really there. I kind of have this guy higher, but like if you threw in your second for my third, like you're competing. My pick's like probably gonna be mid at best. It's like probably only gonna be like a 7-pick fucking drop. Like that will always be my rationale because people will know my intention that my team's maybe ready to compete. Well, if your team gets hurt and that ends up being like the 206, 207, and maybe my team more so finishes at like 3-4 as opposed to 1-2, well, that pick discrepancy is a lot larger than I made it out to be when the deal was first made.
Yeah, and I made it 2 years ago. I made a trade in Tone Setter Truthers that on the surface started as a 1 and a 3 for Jonathan Taylor. That pick ended up being 110 and 310.
Yeah,
I gave him Marvin Mims as well on my side of things. That was probably a fair trade for Jonathan Taylor at the time. But I got him to tack on Baker Mayfield to that trade, and Baker Mayfield became a top 4-round startup asset. So it doesn't have to necessarily even be picks. It could just be a piece on his bench that you like. For example, a good throw-in piece that I like on benches right now is Daniel Jones, because I think Daniel Jones could end up starting for the Indianapolis Colts all season long. And maybe he gets a long-term contract with the Colts. So maybe he'll be the next Baker Mayfield. Anyways, my thought is, yeah, it's easy to just tack on a second-round pick, tack on a couple thirds or whatever, but it can be players too.
Hey, all in all, if you made it to this point, it wouldn't be an FSC video without me mentioning a cowboy or Corey mentioning a mid quarterback.
It would not. It would not. And let's get into bonus tip number 7, because this is not necessarily always needing to be the case. But I do think generally, most of the time when you're making trades, it's best if you're getting the best asset in the deal. Number 1, elite assets are easier to sell than non-elite assets. It's just a fact. If you go try and sell Chris Olave right now, you have to find someone who likes Chris Olave. If you try and sell Malik Neighbors, all 11 managers want Malik Neighbors.
So apply the stress test. Josh Allen, if he missed 6 games next year, where's he going in Dynasty startups this time next year?
His floor is like maybe
103.
Maybe Jaden Daniels past him.
So like knowing the range of outcomes, it's like, okay, I'm taking Josh Allen. If he's productive and he gives me a 25 point per game year, he's probably going to retain his value anyways. Like obviously you can't go up from Dynasty 101, but even if he has maybe a down year, he throws only 28 touchdowns and he's the quarterback 3 in points per game as opposed to quarterback 1, or maybe he misses 5 or 6 games because he like the collarbone injury. I believe it was it was the UCL elbow injury from 2 years ago. That was actually, I remember there was a little bit of a buying window, people would say, but there wasn't really a buying window because whoever had Josh Allen wasn't fucking selling him because of a UCL injury.
Yeah, and I think Mahomes is a good example of this too. He's had 2 bad years in a row, and he's still like my 13th ranked player.
Yeah, I literally had him in a startup, despite him being a 29-year-old quarterback that doesn't run a lot, that has,
2 back-end QB1, high-end QB2 seasons in a row. Yeah.
It just goes to show you, like, when you've established yourself as an elite pillar, unchanging type of elite asset in Dynasty, people will just be willing to buy you even in market lows, and it won't really actually affect their market price.
Yeah, exactly. And including us, like buy lows on elite assets. That's exactly what you go
Every
after.
time.
The shallower your league too, the more that'll matter too. Like if you have, an 8 to 10 man league, start 7 or whatever, like you get a market low on, I hate to bring this up, but like you get a market low on CeeDee Lamb, you're going to go and buy
Literally
CeeDee
right
Lamb.
now, by the way, if Sleeper's watching this, I don't know how he's the 112. That's another separate discussion.
Well, that's where he's ranked in my rank.
Yeah, anyways, shout out the live stream. You guys know the whole discussion on this, but in order to rehash that, we're not going to. But all in all, CeeDee Lamb should not be a half round behind where he was going literally last year.
Yeah. Well, here goes the Cowboys bias again. The more elite assets matter in Dynasty is dependent on how shallow your league is, realistically. It's way easier to replenish depth in a shallow league than it is in a deeper league. If you get you spend your second, your third, and your fourth round pick trying to replenish the wide receiver that you lost, there's a half decent chance you might hit on a decent receiving producer. Does it suck to lose depth if you, say, traded Ladd McConkey and Jordan Addison to go get Malik Neighbors? Yes, it sucks to lose 2 wide receivers for 1, but it's way easier to find cheaper Jordan Addison than it is to find another Malik Neighbors in your starting lineup.
Exactly. I mean, and obviously this is just like an example for you guys. Like, you're probably not going to get Neighbors for something like this, but it goes to show you, like, people might say, oh, like, I'm getting a guy that maybe gives me, 17 points per game, potentially 18 points per game. If Ladd hits the complete nuts, he finishes as the wide receiver 9 or 10 in points per game. Well, if Malik Neighbors hits the complete nuts, you're talking about an 11.5 target per game player that could potentially hit 22 points per game.
Yeah, exactly. And in startup sense, that's like trading a late second round pick and a 6th round pick for the 109 or whatever is where I have Malik Neighbors ranked. So,
or 110, I believe, is where I have him.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we're thinking about in terms of trade discussions. You and I make so many trades that we have to talk about trading strategy. If you guys, of course, want to use our trade calculator, want to get our rankings, want to use the My Teams feature, we made reference to all of them in this video. Head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE to start your 7-day free trial. You can use just the expert function, the expert rankings on all 3 of those things for free on your free trial. But if you do want to sign up for a subscription, you will get access to literally get my opinion or Danny's opinion on your team. By inputting our name into the My Teams feature, you can see how I would rank your team and how your entire league's teams would be ranked based on my rankings, based on your rankings. And same goes for the trade calculator. Same goes for our overall rankings. Check that out. Link down below in the pinned comment. Again, promo code FSE, 30% off, 6 months for free when you sign up annually. And you'll get a free team review voucher when you sign up annually. We can cover your team on a live Dynasty Decisions episode. And make sure to check out all that stuff. We are starting a Dynasty startup. It'll be a couple days from now. It'll be June 15th when we're drawing names for that. So if you guys do want to join that league, it will be a Devi league. Link down below in the description to join that league. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.